Hey everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Coach Replay Show. I am one of your hosts, Cory Camp.
I am Kim Ramadan. We are scary today.
Scary. Actually, this was the best I could get with a Zoom background. Zoom backgrounds aren't that scary, although I do love the mustache.
The mustache is everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And your pirate hat is very cute. I like it.
Thanks.
So here we are. It's the last month of October. We've been focusing on mental wellness all month. And one of the most important things I think we should talk about with mental wellness is the coach's mental wellness. And sometimes we experience things in coaching that are just rough and ridiculous, and you wouldn't believe it. So we asked you at the beginning of the month to share with us your scariest, most cringeworthy stories, your coaching nightmares. We got a few good ones, which we've selected for today's show. If you didn't get selected, know that you're not alone. We've been responding to you in your DMs. Most of these were sent to us via direct message because people wanted to stay anonymous.
It was scary.
Yeah, I totally get it. We also want to be confidential in the work that as we're sharing some of these things, because some of them are quite frightening. So we picked a few because we feel like they were share worthy, because they either are things that we know that many coaches experience or something that no coach should ever experience. So here we go. We've got 5 scary stories we're sharing with y'all today. Now, we've asked a few of our coaches that we know here at Sibme to respond to this. So you're going to hear from a few of our guest coaches, and Kim and I are going to add just a little bit to it. But what do you say, Kim? You ready to get started?
Let's go. We've seen these already. We've previewed them.
All right.
They are scary. Let's see.
Here we go. The first scary story we have is a no coaches allowed. Let's talk about resistant teachers, folks. So this coach is a regional coach down in Texas who said they were contracted to work with teachers on a campus. The principal said, hey, why don't you observe instruction before you meet the teachers so you have an idea what's going on? I know I've had this recommendation before as well. So this coach waits outside the teacher's door, trying to catch their eye. Door was locked. Sometimes this is a safety thing in schools. Teacher sticks her head out the door and says, I don't care what my principal says, you will not step foot in this classroom. I am not working with anyone. And slams the door in their face. So
tough.
Let's take a look at what some of our coaches have to say about this one, and then Kim and I are going to respond. If you have a suggestion or can relate to these situations, I invite you to comment below. Here we go. Let's hear from Coach Kelly Pittman on how she would address the situation.
Resistant teachers can be a scary thing. I have arrived with 2 coffees in my hand, one for you and one for me. One thing I like about virtual coaching is we get to start with that low stakes 360 video request where the teacher gives a classroom tour on video. And sometimes I ask for them to include something in their classroom that represents their philosophy in teaching. And that's kind of an in right there to a conversation that they might offer rather than resist. This also reminds me of a story, to make another suggestion, something that happened to me when I was mentoring first-year teachers. I had been assigned one of the assistant football coaches in a building, and I had heard from other teachers that I knew there that he was very resistant to my coming into his world. So on the first time that I went to meet him, I approached him out in the hallway. He was talking to some other teachers that I knew, and I greeted them, and then I looked at him, my 4'10" self, looking at this assistant football coach, 6'5" plus big guy. And I impulsively said, should I be scared of you? And he broke out in a big belly laugh, and I was laughing. The other teachers were laughing. The students nearby were laughing, and they just broke down the barrier right away, that humor. So that's my suggestion, using humor to break down barriers of resistance.
All right. So thanks to Coach Kelly for sharing that idea. She is teeny tiny. I've had a chance to see her, and she is just the littlest thing ever. So I think that was a great way to just kind of break the ice with this person. But Kim, what do you do? Resistant teachers. Sometimes there's slamming doors in your face. Sometimes you just get the feeling that they don't want you there.
Yeah. It can be uncomfortable because I think no one wants to be anywhere where they're not wanted, right? Like I think in our social lives, in our friend circles, in our workplace, like that just doesn't feel great. I think what Kelly is speaking to is building relationships with people. And I think that sometimes it's done gradually over time with some. People aren't always going to welcome you with open arms. But I do think that the Classroom 360 was a great example of how you can have a low lift to start. So with that, that teacher is using video, but just showing their classroom, no students, not their face, not themselves. And so that is a lower lift to start. But like in other episodes that we've discussed on the Coach Replay show, really building relationships is essential. And sometimes it takes a little time.
Yeah, definitely. Humor is definitely a way to go with that. If you're not a funny person, probably don't try the humor route. Or, just going to make it personable, I think. So yeah, I love that. I think, other suggestions we got are really great as well. So let me just plug our notes and takeaways. We'll be putting all of our coaches' responses and maybe a few of yours. We'll maybe add them after the fact if you've got some good ways that you would address the situation. Have you had the door slammed in your face? Let us know. Is it just a nightmare of yours? Like you're just wondering, like, is the day this will happen? I think that sometimes.
If it hasn't happened yet, it might be today.
It is possible. Now, if it's not scarier, I don't know what is. Let's talk about this one. This is one of my nightmares. I transitioned from the beginning of the school nightmare where, I can't find my class and I can't unlock my locker, to starting the teaching nightmare where like my skirt was tucked into my underwear or something, to now this is my newer nightmare. Not newer, I've been coaching for a while, but this is one of my coaching nightmares for sure. And I've had things happen in this way or not. This is kind of the model bomb moment where we've got another Texas coach here, or an instructional coordinator actually, who was working with a newly certified kindergarten teacher on a think, pair, share strategy, one that we're all pretty familiar with. Mm-hmm. Thought it would be a good idea to model this and record it. I loved it. I'm pretty sure I picked this one just because this coordinator was using video in their work. Yeah. But they were a former middle school teacher, so maybe this is their first time actually teaching in a kindergarten classroom. Mm-hmm. As coaches, we're often in situations where we aren't typically, or we weren't when we were in the classroom. But the coach realizes pretty quickly that this was not going to work. They didn't anticipate the tears that would come from the choice students had to pick when they had to pick a shoulder partner. So apparently the class just melts down because they weren't picked by their friend and so on. So we're going to hear from two coaches this time. One is more of a strategy on how maybe to do that differently, and another is how to embrace the suck of this model here. so let's go ahead and listen to Barbara Bishop.
Oh my gosh, little kids crying. There's only one thing scarier, and that's bigger kids crying. I know that little kids can get their feelings hurt when they're not picked by their favorite friend. So one technique that I like to use is to print out little cards, pictures, perhaps in this time of year, maybe pictures of Halloween kind of things, and you cut them up and hand them out as little tiny cards. Everybody draws one, and then on your mark, get set, go, find your little matching friends. And what I like about this is that the kids realize it was just luck of the draw who they partnered with. And then also you can amp up the rigor by, instead of using pictures, maybe using letters of the alphabets and their lowercase friends.
That's a good one. That's
Great
a twofer.
suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I love that she was talking. I was laughing
Bigger
out
kids
loud. Good thing I
crying.
was muted. Bigger kids crying. Pretty funny. Good one. But yeah, that was great.
That's a good one. All right, let's hear from Melody Deemer. Coach Melody has some good way to embrace the situation. Let's check it out.
I really feel for this coach. I know that it must have felt to her like a real disaster, a fiasco. But really, if you subscribe to the idea of growth mindset and that we learn by making mistakes, this is an opportunity to say to this brand new teacher, look, you're going to have lots of things go wrong during your career. There are going to be days where you just don't feel good about it at all. But the thing is, you can always examine what happened. You can think your way through it. You can ask for some advice or some support if you need it. And you can go back in the next day and institute some improvements and make the situation better, fix the problem. And then, you know, that coach has an opportunity here to model that for the new teacher and to sit down and say, I didn't feel good about what happened there. What are your takeaways? How did you look at it? Here are my takeaways. And let's come up with a plan. I want to come back in again and see if we can't teach these little guys how to work in a partnership so that then they're able to do a think, pair, share when you ask them to.
I love this one. Kim, go ahead.
Subscribe to growth mindset. Do you subscribe to growth mindset? That's a really great way to put it. I think that, you know, I think it's really great to mess up and trip and fall as a coach in front of teachers, because it shows that you're human. It shows that you have, you know, that you're not perfect. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it creates safety in relationships and builds relationships as well, like we were talking about earlier. So, you know, I think, but talking about it, right? And saying like, this, I didn't love the way that went. What were your thoughts? Maybe they have some ideas of how to make it a little bit different next time. But like you said, before we played the clip, you don't always, or before we started talking about this, you're not always coaching inside of your content or inside of your grade level. And so of course you're going to make some mistakes, and that's perfectly fine and acceptable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's why, like, it's the nightmare situation for me when I've got a teacher who's looking to me for that support, and I don't adhere to the adage that, you know, the coach is the expert. I have a lot to continue to learn. I know a thing or two that I can share, but it's not necessarily that I am an expert in an area. And, you know, I'm not with those students day in and day out. I don't have the relationship that the teacher has with those students. Mm-hmm. So it's likely going to be a little messy. And, you know, I adhere to what Melody does say about growth mindset. Like, mm-hmm. I always like to preface a model or a co-teach that I'm going to do with a teacher with, this could go horribly wrong. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some things that might go wrong, mm-hmm. and we'll be sure to talk about things that just didn't go as we planned, because it never does. And I do think it's a really great opportunity to just model that resilience for our teachers, especially our young teachers, that, mm-hmm. you know, it's not about having that perfect lesson and kids because you're dealing with humans, especially when they're tiny humans. So mm-hmm. yeah. I think two really good strategies. One for, you know, doing a think, pair, share, especially with younger ones, from Barbara, and then Melody's got a great way to kind of look at that. So this next one, where Kim and I are going to take this one, because it's just a common one. We had lots of coaches respond to it, and there were too many good responses for us to kind of choose from. So Kim and I are just going to cover this one for everybody, which is, you know, the fact that, and we've talked about this before, sometimes within our coaching, we are we are brought into situations or made aware of situations that are extremely confidential. And, we've built that deep trust, as we should, but we get to hear, or we're tasked with hearing some extremely personal issues. So this California coach, even gives some examples: domestic violence, substance abuse, things that we may have never known otherwise. And sometimes we're kind of the guardians of that information. So, in the moment, I can only think to listen and maybe suggest reaching out to a counselor. So Kim, I know you and I have talked about this, and we've even had a few situations recently where we've dealt, just especially with the pandemic, with some folks struggling with some really difficult things, and how sometimes we aren't the right person for everything. So what would you say to this situation?
Yeah, I mean, as coaches, you wear so many different hats, and very few of those hats are actually coaching. And some of it is, counseling and supporting, and that is all good. And it means that you've created a relationship with this person, and maybe they're sharing things with you that are confidential that they would never share with anyone. The first thing I will say is, if it causes harm to themselves or others,
yes,
we are mandatory reporters and we must report. So that, putting that aside, that just kind of has to be said first. But I'm assuming that we're talking about things that are personal, but not causing harm to self or others. And so I would say, I'm always going to listen. I'm always going to follow up. Especially if I feel like somebody really needs support. That might mean that I'm coaching outside of my coaching hours. That might mean that I'm, reaching out at times when it might be the weekend. But I feel like if somebody has shared this personal information with me, it's because they need someone to share it with and to, and I might be that person. So, obviously I am not licensed in any way, shape, or form to give advice to people. And so I think making sure, one of the coaches that did respond to this suggested to have some numbers on hand. Maybe if you weren't expecting that conversation, you follow up with some support from some licensed individuals who can provide actual support. Sometimes people are just looking for someone to talk to, and that's okay. And I think, then you listen, and then you support, and then you follow up, and all of those things. The other thing that I'll say is, it's extremely important to keep this confidential to the best of your ability as much as you can. So again, causing harm to self or others, that's, we can't, right? But sometimes, you don't want to get into a trap of like talking about that situation to others, because that person has really trusted you with something that's confidential. So, and for example, this happened to me. I was working at a university, not one I work at now, but one that I used to work at. And this happened to me with a student teacher, where they let me know of some personal things that they were going through. And I just made it a point, if asked, to say, I can't comment on that, or I can't talk about that, or that is not something I can share with you, because it's just not something I can share, because it was told to me in confidence.
Yeah, and it's not our story to tell. It's definitely the individuals. And I found that sometimes they just want me to be aware. Like they have the best of intentions. I really am trying, but I just need you to know something that's going on in life that I'm dealing with, right? And they've got it. They've got the situation handled, but it doesn't make it any less stressful or cumbersome on them. So I do think sometimes we hear things for that purpose. I think other times people we are their first outreach, and it is important for us to stay connected with them. Don't make them feel guilty or ashamed for sharing that information, but also, you've got a campus counselor who can help you get in touch without sharing the information, help kind of point you out to the right resources if you aren't aware of them, just to make sure that they do have someone who's qualified to be able to
Mhm.
support them.
Mhm.
And then checking in on them. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yep. It's
So-
heavy and it's tough to carry that around. So again, as coaches, it's important that when we do have things that are shared with us, that we're also taking care of ourselves too, and knowing
Mhm.
that we can't carry that with us. We can support as much as we can, but we can't ultimately do the things that need to happen after that. It's going to be up to the person you're working with. So that can be hard to manage too.
Well, especially, you know, as educators, we have a tendency to as caregivers, right? Because we
Mhm.
care for everyone who comes into our building, to
Yep.
take on the trauma of those that we work with, right? Whether
Yep.
that's students or teachers taking on students' trauma, and then we're taking on that trauma. So I think that's a really great point, making sure that you're taking care of yourself and that you've got someone that you can confide in. Especially if it's, you know, a difficult situation, making sure that that's someone who's removed enough from your environment where it doesn't feel, even if you keep names and specifics out of it, that it doesn't feel like you've gone behind that person's back and shared something confidential.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Very real
Mhm.
situation. I know that we address every day.
Yep. We
Let's
do.
talk about another tough one. Kim, I'm going to let you introduce this one. Actually, the next two I'm going to have you introduce, but this one's a tough one for me because
Yes.
I think I've been put in similar situations. So
Yes.
maybe not this exact one, but here we go.
Yeah. So this situation, sometimes we're asked as coaches to coach in ways that are uncomfortable for us as coaches. And this example is a principal, this is from an instructional coach in Virginia, but for example, one principal I work with said transformational coaching is evident to me when a teacher cries during the coaching conversation, essentially saying that teachers should be crying or else the growth is not happening. And that is really scary, not just for the coach, I would imagine, but also for the teachers and people who are involved in this situation. So we are going to hear from one of our fantastic virtual coaches on what they would do here.
Mhm.
But it certainly is scary to be put in this situation.
Yeah. Definitely scary. So let's hear from Kim Blumke. All of these coaches have been on the Coach Replay show before. She's got a quick, fast response.
Okay, so the first thing I think of is research. I would get together some pieces of research to share with that principal to show them that there is no research that supports making teachers cry.
Okay,
Yeah.
first of all, I can't with that outfit.
Girl.
So in our takeaways, we are going to have we'll give you access to these because I think it's very important that you see all of Kim's costumes, not just that one. But yeah, I think that's a great point that she says, like, you've got it. What research does it say? What research says that making teachers cry is going to be transformational.
Yeah. I think to go back to what Barbara said, little kids crying is scary. Even scarier is kids crying, and that includes our
adults.
Now, full disclosure, I have said on the show before, I have accidentally made teachers cry before, but not like they were overwhelmed, right? I don't know if I can do this. And that does not feel good.
That's not the same thing. No, I don't think.
I pushed them a little too hard in that thing. But I mean, to have that expectation that if you aren't making my teachers cry, I mean, this is not a good cop, bad cop situation coaching. It is not that at all. It shouldn't be scary. You won't have any growth if that, I think, is the way that we're going about these things.
And it turns coaching into a scary thing, which it should not be, because coaching should be a partnership, should be team. It should be all of those words and described that way and not scary. And I think to put the word, and it was, put transformational coaching alongside something like that, then it makes transformational coaching scary. And that's not good either, because really what we're wanting to do is move teachers' practice, yes, but also in a partnership way and in a way that feels collaborative. So definitely a scary story there.
It is. It is. I just realized that I have this fake mole on my face.
Yeah, I've been really distracted by that for a little
I
while.
did too. I thought there was something on my screen this whole time, and I was like, oh.
No,
It's not
I
doing
don't know
okay.
if it's like the beret or the mustache, which one is causing that. But when your hair kind of went like this halfway through the show, I was like, oh,
Oh, there's a
there's a
little,
mole.
it's not Marilyn Monroe's mole, but it'll do. Okay.
We digress. Last scenario. is
Last scenario,
my
scariest
favorite.
one of them all, right? This should be
My favorite.
this is a great one. Here we go, folks. Last
Actual
scary story. If
story.
you've got one that tops this one, I want to hear it.
Definitely
I need
let us
to
know.
hear it. Send it to us. You can email us at learn@sibme.com. If you like this episode, by the way, we'll do more of these, but let's introduce this.
Stop. Okay, so I'm just going to read it word for word because it needs to be read that way. One time when I noticed a principal looking under the table repeatedly, I realized he was clipping his toenails during a leadership meeting. He was in a 3-piece suit, shoes off, socks off, clipping toenails.
I mean, first of all,
I can't.
this is dangerous. Have you seen how far toenails can fly when you clip them? It's dangerous.
Well, it isn't a toenail clipper like a sharp object? Should you
Yeah,
like have
should
that
have that.
around? Also, the hygiene, like the fungi perhaps underneath that. There are a lot.
Oh, my mustache is flashing. Okay, so we've got two coaches who are
Thank you, special coach from
their
Oregon, for
responses to this. Here we go.
for sharing. Can't wait.
Let's go.
Oh, here we go, Kim. Bring it.
Bring it, Kim.
Ew, gross. Maybe throat my mouth a little bit. But here's what you can do. Suggest one time per year you get to have manicures and pedicures during your meeting. And after that, off limits. But maybe stick to manicures because toes are kind of gross. Talk about bonding, right?
Oh.
I mean, I do love the idea of getting manicures during a meeting. I mean, that just makes the meeting a little bit more relaxed.
That sounds really lovely. Not the pedicure idea. And I don't know that once a year is going to cut it. However, get it?
Obviously.
Get it? Got it?
I get it. I get
Okay.
it. We'll have Shafay add a little da-da-da in there. I love that. That was as good as your pirate hat, Kim.
Thank
All
you.
right. Look, I like Melody's response.
All right, Melody, what do you got?
I think this might be the scariest of all of the stories. As a coach, I think I would ask myself, does the fact that this guy's clipping his toenails in a meeting have any impact on my ability to coach, on teachers' ability to improve their practice, or on students' ability to learn? And if the answer is no, I would never speak of it to another human being. If the answer is yes, and I felt like I had to have a difficult conversation with that principal, I would approach it from that angle. Here is how this is, having a negative impact on student learning. So could we talk this over? And I would try very hard not to let the words disgusting or revolting come out of my mouth in that conversation.
I mean, she has a point. Practical, no body shaming allowed.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I love that she took that very silly, but real, it happened.
Yeah.
Conversation and made it serious. Does it have an impact on those things? I love that question.
Sometimes it's just planned ignoring.
Sometimes it's planned ignoring, but sometimes it affects my ability to concentrate. Could you imagine? And then when you're in a meeting with the principal afterwards, every time you're like, is he clipping his toes again today? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
What's happening down there?
What's happening? Yeah. Yeah. You just want to be like, hands. Everybody put their hands up.
Hands up, hands up.
Hands on the table.
You are in charge of taking
feet
notes.
under the table and your hands
Principal must take notes and then
yeah,
know where the hands
there
are
you go.
all together.
That is a smart idea. Let's make him the
note taker.
The note taker.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to talk about it at all. We don't have to address the fact of that. And then for boss day or a holiday or a birthday, everybody pitches in to the local nail salon and gets them a mani-pedi.
And then you can like get the pumice stone and all, the whole thing, not just the clipping.
A whole basket of things.
All the things.
They
Yeah.
like stay at home, keep these at home.
Massage.
Right. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's it, folks. These are
That's
our
all.
top 5 scariest stories, some very real situations, and some just out of this world. If you've got more stories you want to share with us, again, email us at learn@sibme.com. If you've got a suggestion for how you might handle one of these scenarios, hopefully you commented below, or you are welcome to email us as well, learn@sibme.com. You can download our notes and takeaways. We'll put the link in the comments, or go to learn.sibme.com. People wonder why I get confused with this. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and let us know what you think about the episode. Do we need more of these situations, sticky coachy situations that we maybe should have in the future? I know I certainly enjoyed wearing a mustache throughout this episode.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing I like better than a pirate hat. So
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Have a
All
great
right.
week.
Don't
y'all.
eat too much candy, everyone.
Yeah. Be safe out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, see you guys later. Have a good one. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.